This is Lightning Power Lunch, presented by Reef Rum on the Lightning Audio Network with Dave Mishkin and Greg Linnelli.
Honestly, I thought it was a brutal hockey game. You got one team in Florida on their fourth game of a road trip in a couple different time zones, so they're tired. You've got us basically just coming off of four. This is our fifth game in a row in 5 different cities. So it's basically two what I thought were kind of tired hockey teams that it was like being in the American League playing 3-3, and it's that Sunday game where you're grinding, and what happens in those games is you got to get the lead. You get the lead, there's a good chance you're going to win that game, and I thought it would look like two tired hockey teams, and they got the lead and hung on to it. And that's, in 82 games, those games pop up. Bless you. And they happen, and you got to take advantage of them. And it's tough that, it was in our building, and they jumped on us, and we couldn't recover.
No, they couldn't. Hi, Steve.
That was a surprise appearance from Steve Versnick.
Yeah, pops
in case anyone wondered what he looked like.
Yeah, Steve's right there. But was that a not the greatest game to watch? I don't know. Coop's explanation, both teams were tired. I get that. That may have something to do with it. I tell you what, I thought, and it is Power Lunch on Lightning Radio, 1 hour dedicated to Lightning Talk here for you at Bolts Radio. Again, hit us up. I thought, and you guys commented on the broadcast, I felt like Florida was one step ahead of Tampa Bay last night. They were just everywhere, and it felt like it forced Tampa Bay into some uncomfortable moments, turning the puck over. Sure, there were some bad breaks, some bad bounces. We'll get into that. But, the one specifically, and there were more than this, obviously, the one where the shorthanded goal, where Reinhart was able to go the other way, but it started because Radish, I felt like, was just in that no man's land of trying to make a pass. Wasn't a great pass, was rushed a little bit, and it felt like that most of the first period, maybe throughout the game. Curious, partner, what your thoughts were, and that led to the goal. The other point that I do want to make, because I think it is fair to point out, goaltending has been outstanding all along. Chief mentioned this on the post game. He just felt like the Lightning didn't make a save when they needed it, and that was part of it. Was that enough last night? Don't know. I think the Lightning were outplayed, quite frankly, but I'm curious what our audience thinks, and I'm curious what your maybe 30,000-foot view was of last night, and we can start getting into some other interesting elements of that game that dealt with, again, some hits that were maybe borderline dirty, which is fair to point out.
So to me, there are two parts of last night's game. There's the hockey game that was played, and then there are the two incidents that have incensed. Right. And maybe I should use a stronger word than that, but I think about incensed with a capital I.
Sure.
Incensed Lightning fans. Here we go again, right? Same opponent, same stuff. Crickets from the DOPS. Lightning having to swallow dirty hits. At least one dirty hit.
Yeah.
I'll give you my take on the two, but it was the Mikkola play and the Jones play. Let's start with the game. I respectfully disagree with Coop on some level, because the Panthers, to me, did not look like a tired team. I agree with you. I think that they were one step ahead of the Lightning. And we had Doug Plagans on the show yesterday, and he's like, this is actually a perfect end of a road trip for the Panthers, because this game will have their attention. They're behind the Lightning in the standings. They had lost at home to the Lightning a month ago. It helps keep them focused, and they were on it. Let me put it this way. They were coming off their best defensive game of the year. 4-0 shutout win in Dallas against a good opponent. They held the Stars to 15 shots in Dallas. That was their best defensive game of the year, maybe their best game of the year. They rolled right into this game and delivered another great defensive performance. Now, they didn't hold the Lightning to 15 shots, but you could see that they were on it, right? So is this at the level that they were at in the playoffs last year? Maybe not quite at that level, because, the intensity is just lower because it's not playoff hockey. But when the Panthers are playing the way that they are playing right now, at least in the last 2 games, they are quite a handful.
Yep.
Because they are aggressive. It's like they blitz on forget every down. Like every play they're blitzing. And they're always right.
Yeah.
They never get caught on a blitz. They're there. You get the puck, someone's on you. You try and make a pass, there's a stick in the way. It's incredibly frustrating to try and move the puck fluidly against them, which is in part, I didn't think they played as well in the first meeting. They didn't. I mean, the Lightning got breakaways, they had scoring chances. I thought Bobrovsky was asked to do more in that first meeting, which the Lightning won 3-1, than Vasilevsky was asked to do. So it's not like, the Panthers are incapable of playing less well. Like they've played less well. My point was, like, they wouldn't be where they're in the standings if they played this way all year. They're getting to it now. How long can they maintain it? But one reason why I think in the first meeting, Finley, Sabrin, and Douglas did well in that game. They scored a goal. They had chances. They forced the Panthers to play defense. They really just play in a straight line, and they are extremely physical. So they don't try cross-ice passes. They really don't put themselves in a position where the Panthers can use their sticks to disrupt plays. They're not looking for plays to be disrupted. They're just going in a straight line, and they're using their physical attributes to win pucks. So if a Panther gets close to Sabrin is able to basically fight through that check or attempted disruption and force the puck forward and go get it. Last night, if the fans were paying attention, they didn't have quite as impactful a game, but John Cooper was using Paul, Sabrin, and Douglas a lot. He understood that the way that they play does neutralize to some extent what the Panthers do, and the Panthers certainly are playing as well as they did last night. I thought the Panthers had a great game. Now, had the Panthers not jumped out to a 2-0 lead and played basically the entire game with the lead and basically the entire game with a multi-goal lead, might it have looked a little different? Maybe. It could have. Like, that part that Coop brought up is fair. They were the Panthers at the end of a week-long road trip, 3 different time zones. Had they been the team forced to play catch-up, maybe it would have unfolded a little differently, but they didn't. They made a couple of plays early in the game, and the Lightning have to own that. You give up a 2-on-1 and a 3-on-1, you are inviting trouble in the first 4 minutes of the game. And as I wrote an extra shift, like, those were the biggest moments in the game as far as the hockey game is concerned, because those mistakes, the Lightning didn't make a lot of mistakes. I mean, the Panthers had only finished with 34 shot attempts. That is low. But they had the lead, and they were content just to defend, disrupt plays, chip pucks out, get pucks in. They had an opportunity to go get another goal. They would do it, but they were very content just to kind of, all right, we're just going to play the time, the score, the situation. We're up. We're not going to give them any freebies.
Right.
And if you look at the game, I understand Bobrovsky was busier in the first period, and the Lightning had some looks, but a lot of those looks, the Lightning had to work so hard to generate those chances. And even those chances, many of them were contested. Like, there was that 3-shot in a row sequence. I think Kucherov, Hagel, and Cirelli all had a shot, and I think every single one of them, Kucherov had the puck come to him. It was almost a broken play. He had an open look. Bobrovsky made the save. I think that's the one I'm remembering. But then Hagel and Cirelli had follow-ups. They were both like contested shots. They weren't clean shots. And it wasn't until the third period where the Lightning made a long stretch pass that Radish and Gergensen's got a 2-on-1. And honestly, it was 5-2 at that point. They didn't execute it quite as well as maybe as they could have. Like, Radish cut to the middle, kind of crisscrossed with Gergensen's, took a shot, it was deflected wide. That was the only odd man rush the Lightning got the whole game.
Right.
Look at what the Panthers got. A 2-on-1 and a 3-on-1 in the first 4 minutes. So as much as we can say, like, Bobrovsky, like, he was solid, but I think it was kind of a Sorokin type of game for Bobrovsky, the earlier Sorokin games that you were talking about. I don't think the Lightning generated some chances, and many of them came in the first period. But Bobrovsky had a fairly routine game because of how well the team played in front of him. And the Lightning, I'll just say this. I mean, I know that one late with Radish and Gergensen's. The game was, they were down 3 at that point. When things mattered, the Lightning got no freebies from Florida. 0. A little bit unlucky, too. Like on the power play, Gord hit the crossbar right before the second goal. So you want to look at like, how did the Panthers do it? I mean, Coop is right. The team that got the lead would be in the driver's seat, but I mean, there were still 56 minutes left in the game when it was 2-0, and then they just locked it down. And all the funny business aside, I think what is becoming definitely clear, the Panthers, when they play the Lightning, may not be able to reach the level that they reached last night. I thought they reached a very high level defensively, and clearly they're playing kind of that way now because it wasn't a fluke like they did it couple of nights earlier in Dallas. But even if they're not playing at that level, the way they want to play the Lightning have to find a way to not play into what the Panthers want to do. And maybe this is armchair quarterbacking it. I mean, I don't have the expertise of the coaching staff. They are game planning. I understand all that. But we have seen the Panthers be in the right place to disrupt what the Lightning want to do time and time and time again. And, you know, at some point you're going to have to either figure out a way to do it better so they can't stop you, or do something else. And maybe it's a little bit of page out of we'll call it the fourth line, and to an extent Gord, Gergensons, and Holmberg. I think that they do that a little bit too, more than a little bit. They play in a straight line. I thought they had some good moments where they were making the Panthers work in the defensive zone. But this was a game to me that, you know, the Lightning were off. For them to give up a 2-on-1 and a 3-on-1 in the first 4 minutes tells you that they were feeling the effects of first home game back, which we talked about, and they needed a save. Phil didn't like the first goal, the Reinhardt goal. He put that one on Johansson. I think that the Lundell goal was a really good shot, but he's a lefty on the right side of the ice. He has a great angle, and it's a 3-on-1. He shot it in. So, you know, had the game stayed 1-0, who knows? Maybe it would have looked a little different. I mean, the 2 goals the Lightning scored, were they really grade A chances? They were well-placed shots from kind of distance, but they went into the top of the net.
Right.
And Bobrovsky was screened, certainly on one and maybe on both. So, like, what can the Lightning do moving forward to the next game, which is coming up in, 11 days? It's the first game after the Christmas break for both teams. Well, first of all, the Panthers may not play as well as they did, but can we assume that? Maybe they will. I don't know. I think the Lightning have to find a way to break down the Panthers more effectively than they have done, especially in the games in Tampa. I actually think the Lightning have done okay in that regard in the games in Sunrise, going even back to the playoffs last year and in the regular season. And they did it in the first meeting this year. Next game is in Sunrise. Who knows what's going to happen? But this was like skating in a quicksand type of game for the Lightning, because the Panthers were just everywhere. Their sticks were everywhere. They were getting in on puck carriers for the Lightning. The power play goal that Reinhardt scored, like, the Lightning had a couple of chances to get the puck out shorthanded. In every attempt, there was a stick in the way. And like, Destu's trying to get it out, and it was Lundell. Lundell got in on him. And like, if you're trying to like muscle the puck out and there's a guy like pressing on you, you're not going to get all of the puck. That's a credit to the Panthers. They were just, they were on puck carriers. So Destu doesn't get enough of it. Samoskevich blocks it, across, Reinhardt shoots it in. So yeah, great pass, great finish, but Destu with the puck. Why did the puck not get out? It was that pressure. It was that ability of the Panthers to get to the puck carrier and disrupt what the puck carrier wanted to do with the puck before that happened. So instead, it was deflected, or it got full out intercepted, or, you know, the puck didn't go to where the Lightning player wanted to put the puck. So it's hard to like string kind of passing plays together. Anyway, I kind of went on, I rambled a little bit, but that's how I saw the game. It felt like 4-0 felt like 8-0 to me. And a credit to the Lightning that they chipped away and made it 4-2, a chance on the power play to make it 4-3, but they did get outplayed last night. I mean, there was no getting around that. Even the schedule situation aside, or factoring in that, you know, both teams may have been tired, but one team definitely outplayed the other.
And I think that dovetail too into the power play. Once again, the special teams, you know, it's a crooked number, 0 for 5, and it's not.
Their aggressive kill just turns the Lightning into a pretzel.
It's a problem.
Like-
Would you agree at this point? It's a problem. I mean, if you talk about matchups, for as much as you want to talk about matchups, and I brought up the point about the Islanders and how they dug in against Tampa Bay for 3 games, but I felt like in a 7-game series that I think Tampa Bay would figure it out. Maybe that's because I think the talent level would overcome some of the challenges that maybe the Islanders present from a defensive perspective. But I think when the talent level is somewhat even, now it becomes maybe more of a chess game a little bit, or something more tactical. And while hockey can be very fluid and it's hard to maybe game plan all the time like in other sports because there is this constant motion, it does feel like the Panthers have a nice plan of attack to contain the Lightning in areas where they typically perform well, although in this case, the power play we know has struggled all year long, and Kucherov would tell you that it struggled against the Panthers in the playoffs. So maybe that is something that I don't think you go out and you try to acquire talent or call people up to see if specifically they can fix that mold. But we do know that that is a problem, and if the Panthers are able to take that part of the game away for Tampa Bay in a series, in a game, then you definitely tilt the ice and make it more challenging for Tampa Bay to come away with wins and points. I think it's fair. Brian also alluded to that he felt like, and this gets back to like scouting and making sure you understand strengths and weaknesses, that he was saying that the Panthers know the Lightning like to do a lot of the D to D, and that's the forwards are doing a good job of really going out that way to challenge.
You're talking about 5-on-5, not on the power play.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that has put them in some positions of turning the puck over or rushing. And I think that's fair to say. The other thing, too, is I don't want to perseverate on it because I don't think it's a long-term negative trend. But in that game, you do need your goaltender to probably pick you up more so than what you need, and that didn't happen. And really, that might have been the first game since Johansson's been here, at least in the short run for me, that I looked at and said,
well, it was
probably
the first goal
game.
for sure. Yeah, the others, they would have required tough saves. I think that the goals that went in for Florida, like the Reinhart goal was a 2-on-1. It went 5-hole, and the goalie, as Chief said, is supposed to take the shooter there, so it almost looked like he was worried about a pass across, be that as it may. The other goals that went in, I'm not sure that the Lightning got looks like that on Bobrovsky, and that was kind of my point. Like the Marchand goal, he's right in front of the net. He beat Crozier to the front of the net and redirected it in. The Lightning didn't get chances like that forced a save from Bobrovsky. Maybe Gord did in the one that hit the crossbar.
Yeah.
Let me just address the Lightning power play and the Panthers penalty kill, and maybe this also kind of bleeds into 5-on-5 play. And I'm saying this is a specific matchup because the Lightning faced other aggressive penalty kills, and they've been able to do well against those kills. Maybe not so much this year as the power play has struggled a little bit, but they have done well against aggressive kills in the past, while at the same time struggling against the Panthers kill. So Brian is right when you were talking about like they can anticipate the Lightning's tendency to go D to D. I think the Lightning have tendencies on their power play, and the Panthers just know them so well that they're disrupting, right? So I almost feel, and this may not be the best analogy, but it's the one I'm coming up with today. So go with me. It's like the Lightning's power play with the first unit, they want their car to be a Ferrari. And a Ferrari is very, very effective on a paved road. You can zip right along, and you are not going to be caught by most other cars, right? What the Panthers are effective at doing, though, is changing the terrain. They turn that paved road into like dirt terrain or potholes, or like they just disrupt the road the Lightning want to drive on.
Yeah.
So when the Lightning get into their Ferrari, they're like bouncing around, they're hitting potholes, they're slowed up. Like they can't go at the speed that they want to go. And really what they're trying to do is make plays, right? Kucherov to the corner, to Gensel, into the bumper for point. Kucherov going cross ice, like one-timer back to Kucherov, shot gets blocked. They are making passes to try and create something. The Panthers are not allowing them to make those plays that require some finesse. So a different sort of power play would be like an off-road vehicle. And maybe the approach needs to take a little bit more of that sort of look where, you get into an off-road vehicle, you can handle those potholes.
Yeah.
You're bouncing along. And what am I really saying? Like, do something a little different in terms of instead of the pass, look for a shot, you just go right. It's going right to the net. Like, you don't think that would surprise the Panthers if they're like expecting one thing from how the Lightning work their power play and then all of a sudden there's something else? Now, it's easy for me to say. I'm not like game planning this, but we've seen enough of this. Just even going back to last year. What were the Lightning? 3 for 18 in the playoffs?
Yeah.
3 for 18 during the regular season. They're 0 for whatever this year in the playoffs. 0 for 5 in the game last night, and they didn't score in the power play in the first meeting. So 0 for whatever. Like, it's not working, right? So if you change things up a little bit, you can catch them off guard because they are so dialed in to what the Lightning want to do on the power play. We've seen it enough. They've seen the Lightning enough. Preseason, I know it's not always the top unit in the preseason. 4 games in the regular season. Playoffs. Back again the next year. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see if that transpires. I do recall the Lightning had an early power play in the first meeting, and they looked pretty good, and they had a shooting mentality. They didn't score. That was in that first meeting. Last night, it was more kind of like what we've seen in the last little while between the teams, where the Panthers are super aggressive, they anticipate, and they jump on pucks, and often they get them down the ice, or they look to go in the counterattack. Like, you think about it, so Radish makes that pass. Okay, fair enough. Maybe it's a little bit into traffic. I think I didn't actually watch the replay of how it started. I think Point and Bjorkstrand are near each other at the circle, but it got disrupted by Ekblad because he got an assist. So the puck bounces to Reinhart. He counters on a 2-on-1 from inside his own blue line. Mm-hmm. So you can say, all right, they turned the puck over, but why are 4 power play guys caught down low and unable to get back defensively? So I mean, the Lightning have to own that. Yeah. And maybe they were like pressing for a goal, right? But that aggressiveness has really disrupted what the Lightning want to do on the power play. Anyway, that's my take on it. And we've seen that aggressiveness. Like last night, we saw it 5-on-5 too. Now, if the Lightning are up 2-0 instead of down 2-0, does that change the way the Panthers play a little bit? Do they get caught out of position maybe a little bit more? Possibly. I mean, they didn't play an A-plus game in the first meeting between the teams. I thought the Lightning, it was a fairly close game, but the Lightning had more scoring chances than the Panthers, and they scored more than the Panthers. So last night was a different story.
Yeah.
But that's Panther hockey. That's when Paul Maurice says, I can make a training camp video out of this Dallas game. That's what he's talking about. Mm-hmm. That's the way they want to play. They had control of the rudder virtually the entire night. That was as close to the full 60 as you'll see. I mean, the Panthers really, they didn't make a lot of mistakes at all.
There was also a portion of the game that had a lot of people talking beyond just goals and goals allowed and other things like that. Here's John Cooper talking about one of those moments, partner, and then we can get into it. Also, questions coming in, which we want to get
I'm
to.
sure.
Well, got elbowed in the head. Like, was Gensel just jumping up to say for fun, I'm going to fight a guy a foot taller than me? No. So, it was another one where, I don't know, he earned his fight.
There you go. Jake Gensel.
First fight in his career.
Sabrin approached Mikkola multiple times and was basically following him around for a good 30 seconds towards the end of the game to see if he wanted to dance for what he did to Gensel. And Mikkola didn't want anything to do with Sabrin. That being said,
I think
good
you have
for
to
him.
you have to be careful there. I believe that they put in a rule, and I don't remember exactly the verbiage, but if you instigate a fight near the end of a game, it does carry an automatic suspension, and it may even be that the coach is suspended too. So you have to be very careful about starting a fight if you
So-
may get an instigation penalty.
If you also watch that, so a couple of observations. First one was
I may not have the
before-
rule exactly right, but
Yeah.
I know that it's not just, it's different when it's the end of the game as opposed to middle of the game.
So at one point, the start of the shift, when Sabrin was trying to encounter Mikkola, you could see he was skating towards him, and he kept doing this with his glove. For those who were just listening, he wanted to take off his glove and fight. He basically was saying, as soon as you give me the green light to drop this glove, it's coming off, and we're going to fight. And Mikkola kept skating away from him. Then it got to the point where Sabrin just was basically right in front of him, and they were just standing in front of each other, and you could tell Sabrin was like, are you going to do this or not? I'm paraphrasing. Of course, I don't know what they said, but the fact that he didn't fight leads me to believe that Mikkola just didn't want to do it. Okay. Gensel fighting, first career NHL fight. Obviously, you don't want to see that. Mikkola, much bigger. And listen, based off of some of the information we've been getting the last couple of days with players being injured, that's the last thing you want is Jake Gensel, who's been
Right.
probably your most consistent forward.
That was
to
the
lead a
farthest
game.
thing from a scripted fight as you will ever
Yes.
see.
Yeah.
That
So
was in the
obviously,
moment.
it was definitely in the moment, and good for Gensel, as Brian said on the last call yesterday. Sometimes you just have to do it yourself.
Yeah.
Now, you'd prefer to have a Douglas or Sabrin do it, but if those guys, if nobody's willing to fight them and it's in the moment, Gensel had to be the one to do that. That was very unfortunate. Sorelli was looking for somebody at the end of the game. I don't know, partner. You're obviously following the puck.
Yeah.
I was watching Sorelli when the play was down at the other end. He was looking for somebody to go. You can see it, and why? Because you can say they went after Hagel or not. Another hit. I'm going to call it to the upper body. I mean, we kind of know
it got him in the chin. I think it did. Yeah.
So that is, I mean, look, at this point, I do think it's a concern now for Hagel. Okay? Am I having Sidney Crosby flashbacks?
Mm-hmm.
Are we having Victor Hedman flashbacks when this was becoming more of a thing? I mean, it's happening with the Panthers. You can say they're targeting him, but it's another hit to the head. So Sorelli, in the third period towards the end of the game, was livid. It's a good friend. It's obviously his teammate.
Mm-hmm.
They work very well. You could tell he was this close, and I'm using my thumb and my index finger,
Yes.
of really unloading somebody if somebody was going to engage. Like, he was giving hard cross checks. He was slashing. I mean, he was ready to go with whoever came across his vision and wanted to. So is that a problem with these two teams? I think we can say right now that this has become an issue for Brandon Hagel to the point where I don't know how to address it, particularly if the Panthers aren't. And I can say every one of their hits to Hagel this year has been, I think, over the line. But
Well, it's only been, Greg, I mean, you look at it, he played the little bit in the preseason game when Greer sucker punched him.
right.
But he missed the first game because Carson Soucy checked him and he
Right.
got dinged up in the game before. So this was only his second appearance against the Panthers since the Ekblad hit. He's had very limited time against the Panthers.
Well, but it's been 3 hits
But
against
you're
the
right,
Panthers.
yeah.
That's what
but
I'm
it's
saying.
not
So,
like he's played a whole bunch of like he's barely been in
But-
these games. He's played very little hockey
they've not only taken him out
in
and I
taking these
use-
hits.
and I use that in terms of he's had to leave because of injuries.
Yes.
And it's been to the head.
And
Part
it's
of that,
been at other points this year too, like the Soucy play.
Well-
and then there was another one, right?
but now you become
Yeah.
susceptible to this. And this is the thing about the head. I mean, you want to protect guys. I don't know how to address this other than this has become an issue.
So let me just address the Hagel
Go ahead.
situation as it stands right now, because we don't have a lot of information. The Lightning canceled a practice today, so nobody is on the ice. By the way, they did send Halverson back to Syracuse along with Sabrin. The Halverson news is a very good sign for Vasilevsky, by the way. I know we took some questions about that. So the hit on Hagel happened, I guess, about 5.5 minutes into the third period. More than possible, I believe this happened. I believe he got the the protocol. I believe the concussion spotter pulled him. The fact that, like, a couple of the reporters, Eric had this, had Hagel after the game still in uniform means that they did the protocol through the end of the game. So it might have been the protocol was like, you didn't have a concussion. Like, it may have been a precautionary pull. We don't know that yet. So if that's the case, the hit, we'll just say, had no cumulative effect because it was like a precautionary pull. Maybe he did get dinged, as we say, and, has another one of these incidents, and that would be very, very troubling. We're going to have to wait for an update, actually, just from John Cooper and or the Lightning, or see if he's on the ice for practice tomorrow. Okay. I agree with you, though. It is very concerning that he's having to leave these games after taking these hits. So the 2 hits. The Jones hit on Hagel. So Hagel has taken 3 hits to the head from the Panthers since he checked Barkov not in the head, got the interference major, thrown out of the game in the playoffs, but he didn't hit Barkov in the head. He hit him in the chest. He took the forearm shiver to the face from Ekblad in game 4. Yeah. He took the sucker punch, glove sucker punch, 2 of them, but it was the second one. And he was kind of not expecting a second punch right after the first one from Greer. That was in the preseason, and then the one last night. I thought the Jones one last night was the least flagrant of the 3. Okay? And I watched the replay a couple of times. I've kind of dipped my toe in the pool about, like, what do people think about this? Hagel is kind of leaned over a little bit. Did he put himself in a vulnerable position? All of these are fair questions to ask. Like, if a player is keep your head up, keep your head up. Like, that's always the reaction from the fan base of the team that delivered the hit. Keep your head up, keep your head up. Well, his head is up. Like, players skate that way. Like, he's leaned over his stick. He's stick handling. That's how players stick handle. Unless you're Carter Verhaeghe, who's a rare guy, he like stick handles straight up. Most guys lean over their stick when they're stick handling. His head is up. But the Jones hit is not as flagrant as the Ekblad hit.
Yeah.
Ekblad comes in, and I'm again on video, you can see what I'm doing, but he basically throws a punch with his elbow, basically, right into Hagel's face.
Sure.
The problem I had with the Jones hit, I think it's kind of twofold, because I had a problem with it after I watched it a few times. First of all, it looks like he kind of changes directions at the last second. Jones, I'm talking about. But the bigger issue was he cocks his elbow. His elbow was out.
Right.
So he didn't like propel the elbow, but he led with his elbow. That should be an elbowing minor. Like, if you do that, you should get a penalty. And this is going to lead into the Mikkola play, and which is also going to lead for me going to the player safety discussion. Okay. So Hagel does get hit. If it hit him in the chest, maybe he would have not had to be pulled, because I think he was pulled by the concussion spotter. The problem was that Jones threw his elbow out. He led with his elbow. That's not okay. I mean, we have the screenshot. You can find it online. It looks bad for Jones because he's sticking his elbow out. So if he kept his elbow locked to his chest, when you see the big hits that are really clean hits, and you're like, the guy should have had his head up, whatever. How is the player delivering the hit positioning his arm? It's wedged against his body. He's leading with his arm, but his arm is down, right? We've seen hits like that. Jones doesn't do that. Jones leads with his elbow. That was the problem I had with the hit. But I repeat, that was less bad, in my opinion, than the Ekblad play or the Greer play. But it wasn't great. Okay? And then consider who was taking the hit. Hagel. Again. So Lightning fans have a right to be extremely ticked off about this, because Jones doesn't need to lead with his elbow. He doesn't. And he chooses to. That was a choice he made. All right. The Mikko play is dirty with a capital D. The play is over. Gensel, the Lightning are on the power play. They made it 4-2. There's the failed challenge, which we can get into that a little bit too, and why it was allowed to stand. It was close, but it was allowed to stand.
Right.
Lightning on the power play. Gensel gets the puck. It kind of bounces to him. It wasn't even, it wasn't a clean play. It kind of like skipped to him. He tried to go to the front of the net, took a shot. Bobrovsky makes the save, covers. Gensel, I think Gensel is pushed down by Mikkola, but he may have just gone down. Gensel is on his knee or knees at the side of the net, behind the net, and Mikkola delivers an elbow punch to his head. So when you wonder, why is Jake Gensel, who's played over, 600 games in the NHL in the regular season and has never had a fight, ever, not one. What happened to get him so ticked off that he would drop the gloves and fight a guy who's, 5-6 inches taller than him? I mean, Coop said a foot taller. He's not a foot taller. But, I mean, he was that mad. Why was Jake Gensel, in all the hockey that he's played, in all the minutes he's been on the ice, in all the situations that he's been in, what happened
I don't know.
that got him that so ticked off that he dropped the gloves? That was a brutal, dirty hit from Mikkola, who has done this before. We saw the hit on Gergensons in the playoffs last year. He got a game misconduct, but no suspension. We've seen him do this. This is how, to an extent, Mikkola has incorporated a new element to his game, because I don't think that we saw this from him before he got to Sunrise. Okay? So I don't think the officials saw it. This isn't one that they went back and reviewed. I think if they had, they would have given him an extra penalty. It actually would have given the Lightning a 5-on-3. So in terms of the game, that was kind of an important miss. But it was dirty. So Gensel reacted. And that was the dirtiest play in the game last night to me. So to me, the Jones play was kind of sneaky and probably could have been avoidable. And it is unfortunate that it happened to Hagel. And maybe Jones knew it was Hagel and stuck his elbow out. We'll never know. Mikkola knew exactly what he was doing. And so Eric had a very spirited article this morning. If you haven't read it, I recommend. If you're a Lightning fan, you will probably enjoy reading it very much. On lightninginsider.com, he basically called out the Panthers for having no honor because Mikkola does something like that. And yes, he fought Gensel, but Jake Gensel has never fought before. If you're going to do something like that, you should expect that you have to respond to it. And he's not responding. That was what you were talking about. Same thing with AJ Greer. So yes, AJ Greer fought Darren Radish in that preseason game. Darren Radish is not Scott Sabourin. AJ Greer should be able to handle himself. If you're going to sucker punch Brandon Hagel and knock him out of the game, you should expect that at the very least, you have to answer for that with a fight, not against somebody who doesn't usually fight.
I mean, that's the code, isn't it?
That's the code.
We keep hearing
about this. And the Panthers keep skating away from it. So as much as they like to press the envelope, toe the line, go over the line, force the DOPS to make a decision that often falls on their side of the ledger, when these offending players are challenged, they are not reciprocating. And I'm going to pull this back to Hagel one last time. What Brandon Hagel said after the hit on Barkov, he's like, if somebody would have challenged me to a fight, I would have fought, even if I got my rear end kicked. The Panthers didn't do that to Hagel. They didn't show Brandon Hagel the same respect the Lightning are showing to Mikkola and Greer. Because it is a sign of respect. Because they could do something else to those players, like Ekblad did to Hagel,
and the
like Greer did to Hagel.
Greer needs, and look, I'm not a big fighting guy. I think this stuff has to happen naturally. But as long as you have it in the game, you and I, among everybody else, are going to have these discussions. So do you think do we agree based off of what Sabourin did to Ekblad? Do you think that's done? That's been settled? I mean, in theory. No idea. But I think we would both agree the Greer stuff has not been settled.
I mean,
that has not been settled.
Hagel approached, I didn't see this until today. Hagel kind of approached him and gave him like a fake punch with the glove, and Greer like flinched. He's like, yeah, well, Greer, you actually didn't fake. Yeah. You actually punched me. So Hagel could have done that to Greer right there. He didn't.
To me, well, and listen, quite honestly, I don't want Hagel fighting at this point. That's
Correct.
and so you get in.
I probably got a little more worked up there.
No,
than-
that's
than
fine.
I
You're
should
allowed
have,
to.
But like this is the part I think
It's
that
a problem.
It's all of it. All of it is incensing the Lightning.
It's
the
a problem.
hits, the lack of kind of accepting the challenge for
Ethics.
that. the fact that through the preseason stuff, Greer got basically a fine that he was able to handle pretty easily, but like correspondingly, Lightning Moser got 2-game suspension, Sabrin got a 4-game suspension, the Lightning got fined as a team, John Cooper got fined as a team.
You get fined,
So,
we get fined.
Let me just move on to the DOPS here.
Uh-oh.
In a vacuum.
Uh-oh.
No, I'm going
God.
to give you my
I know.
opinion here
I
because
know.
it sounds like there's nothing happening to Jones, and I haven't heard anything on Mikkola. So if something happens to Mikkola from the DOPS, if he gets a call, I take this all back, okay? So in a vacuum, with no history whatsoever, I do not think the Jones play is a suspendable play. I don't, okay? I am inclined not to think that the Mikkola play is it's probably not suspendable either. It definitely warranted a penalty, though. And maybe more than a 2, because there was intent there with his elbow. But, Gensel's not hurt. Gensel was able to finish the game, all the things that they take into account. So most times that is not really a play that would get suspended. Here's the issue, though. Optics. The first meeting between the teams, George Parros was in the building. There was all this attention. Everybody had to watch their P's and Q's because they knew what had happened before. And it was a very intense game, but it was a fairly quiet game. The Lightning were looking to challenge Greer. Greer was like, no. Which, honestly, had Greer accepted a challenge from Sabrin, that would have just been a fight, and George Parros wouldn't have had anything to say about that. That would have just been a fight in the game. For the DOPS in the second meeting to watch the replays, because I'm sure they've seen them, of these 2 hits, certainly one for sure with intent, and the other one, generously speaking, for Jones, reckless, I will say, because he stuck his elbow out.
Yeah.
It may have been more than that. We'll never know. For them to have crickets about this sends really bad optics. So the next question for Lightning fans is, what do the Lightning do about this? What are they supposed to do about these hits? Because when they kind of tried to take matters into their own hands, they got hit with all these fines and suspensions for the preseason game. I think, and this is my opinion, I'm going to be wrong, I think the DOPS should suspend Mikkola. I think they should slap him with a multi-game suspension, and that's like, you try any of this stuff again, George Parros may not have been in the building, but he saw what you did. This is unacceptable. Not against the Lightning. We're trying to quiet this down.
Yeah.
You just exacerbated it. You're sitting. And then the next Panther who's like, oh, well, if I do this, maybe I'm going to be suspended. The league has set a precedent then that this funny business is not going to fly. It may be okay against other teams. But in this instance, like there was a reason why the league had its eyeballs on that first meeting in mid-November. If something like that happened in the November game, I think we would have seen a ripple effect. So why is there no ripple effect in the second game? That's what I was thinking about today. Do I think that either play, honestly, is suspendable?
Yeah.
No. But given the history, given what happened in the preseason, given the fact that the league is very sensitive to this, and we just saw an escalation in the last game. If the league is like, we have Jake Gensel, an all-star player, 4 Nations player, likely Olympian, who has never had a fight in his NHL career. What happened? What happened that set him off? Oh, that happened. Lightning Panthers again. Needless play. Dirty play. You're suspended. That's how I would have handled it if you make me the head of the DOPS for a day. But that's one person's opinion, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be wrong about it. I don't know if it would have had an effect anyway, but that's how I would have looked at this from the league's perspective because their optics are already not great between these two teams.
No.
Forgetting the whole Colin Campbell, Gregory Campbell stuff. Like, people around the league were like, why did the Lightning get all of the fines and the suspensions coming out of that 322 penalty minute game? They didn't get all 322 penalty minutes, did they?
Yeah.
That was the reaction from people who were like looking at this with no skin in the game. Here again, we have a dirty play, and I'll keep it to the Mikko play because I thought that was a dirty play that was missed, which happens, and no supplemental discipline. That's a tough one. It's a tough one to swallow.
It's a tough pill to swallow.
And it's a tough message to send.
Yeah.
They have a chance here to send a message to the Panthers.
They don't want to do it.
Well, it may just be that they're looking at the play and being like, well, that really doesn't rise to the level of a suspendable offense. That's my guess. I don't know.
Let's get to this read. I want to get to some questions.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of them coming in, as you can imagine. Tonight, enjoy some Refrom. Smooth, versatile, and outpouring at Benchmark International Arena. Order a Tropical Wave or a Lightning Mule and taste why fans are switching. Refrom is a premium craft Florida local rum built on authenticity, quality, and easy drinkability. Ask for Refrom by name. Go Bolts. Enjoy responsibly. We didn't even get to Gonsalves out again.
Yeah.
In terms of a healthy scratch. And we talked about that a little bit on the show. And who the heck knows where things are going. Let's. I'm just going to start hitting these up. Andrew says, Lightning enforcer need to chicken our motion a la Brian Boyle to the Panthers team.
I'm not sure that would make a difference. The Panthers seem immune to shame. They're just walking away from the fights, and they don't seem to have a problem with it.
They really don't at all. And Arrigo says, I have no words for today, just frustration and have to look on the positive side where half of our current team is on AHL and we're hanging in there. Let's be positive and move forward. I think we are. I think sometimes just the emotion of the game.
Yeah. That was a tough one for Lightning fans to swallow because the team got outplayed on the ice, and then we had all the stuff in the third period.
Andrew says it's not why the Bolts lost, but with each meeting with the Panthers, it becomes more and more obvious it's some shady business with them and DOPS. 2 elbows to the head, and no discipline is coming, of course. So that's going to be the narrative a little bit. K-Bay Lightning says, frustrating knowing it's been reported the league is not going to look into Seth Jones hit or on Hagel, which that tells me they won't look into hit on Gensel either. I think that's fair point to say. This one comes from Lucas. Steve, my OCD can't handle you having Greg on the left and Dave.
Why is that a problem? What would it be better if we were flipped? I think Steve can do that.
And Dave on the right. Listen, Steve is good. There we go.
Now I feel like I'm cross-eyed.
Lucas, you ask and you shall receive. Spectre says Department of Panther safety on full display last night. Nothing Bolts Nation isn't used to.
Look, in defense of the referees, I think both those plays were a little difficult to spot because, and I mean, they can't just go back and look at every single play on replay. Now they can look at hits to the head, and it's possible that they could have, I guess, gone back and look at it on replay. I guess they didn't think that anything had happened between Mikko and Gensel, that, the fight was just organic. I don't know. I will just bring this one point up now I'm going to go on the other side of the ledger, and the Lightning fans are going to be like, no, you're wrong about this. The league is biased against the Lightning for the Panthers. So that was a close review on the goal. At the time, I was like, why did Paul Maurice challenge this? So as we've talked about with goalie interference, this is the rule. If the contact was incidental. There was no flagrant contact there. That was incidental contact that was very minor, but it was contact. There was incidental contact. If that contact had happened in the blue paint, the goal would have been taken off the board. If it happens in the white, it's a good goal. Okay? Gensel's entitled to that space. If you watch the replay, Gensel, the back, so he's facing the shooter. The back side of his skate blade barely enters the blue. So, what does it mean to say the contact is in the blue? Well, what they're really looking at is where is the contact. It's not where is the skate, where is the contact. And what the league determined was the contact happened in the white. So Bobrovsky's, his skates are in the blue, but he's leaning forward, right? Gensel's skates are barely in the blue, but he's standing straight up. They determined, and it was close. It didn't take him that long, but I mean, I guess they saw a conclusive replay. The contact happened in the white. That call could have, with a different set of eyes looking at it, potentially gone the other way. So that was a call that went against the Panthers, made it 4-2, put the Lightning in the power play early in the third period. If they score there, they didn't. But so again, I'm usually the one saying, like, there's no bias, right? They're doing the best they can. That was a close call that went in the Lightning's favor against the Panthers. One example from last night. Of course, that is the Situation Room. That is not the DOPS. As we've taken great pains to explain, they are two separate departments. But anyway, I just wanted to get that out there that the Lightning got a call last night. They did. It might have been the first call that had gone their way on any kind of a review, too, this year.
The Lightning got a call.
They got a call.
The Lightning got a call.
Yeah.
All right, let me get to... I had a couple here. Let's hide that one. I want to make sure these are... I can read these on air. Aaron said, hit on Hagel's bad. However, they let 5 pucks in their net, and knowing this team, a 5-minute power play would have made 0 difference.
Look, they got outplayed last night. I mean, there's no getting around that fact. I just think that what was a game that left a sour taste anyway in the mouths of Lightning fans was made worse based on the 2 hits.
Yeah. This is a actually good point, and we've got a few minutes to discuss maybe a turning point in this game. Timothy says, if Yanni doesn't miss the open net, the game is 1-1 and maybe a different outcome. That's a fair point. Look, they lost. They got outplayed. But as you and I have discussed on many occasions, every team who is down or is being outplayed does have some sort of pushback throughout a 60-minute game. It may not be sustainable or a long period. It may just be a couple of moments. The Yanni Gourde open net was a moment.
Yeah.
Because didn't Florida go back and score on that play,
so
right? I mean,
you're right.
The net,
like score effects may have had or may have played a role in the game last night. They may have. Like we said, Florida had the 2-goal lead for much of the game. They had a 1-goal lead, for even longer, or they had a lead for even longer. But kind of the previous point, the fan who had about the 5 goals allowed, like, okay, so they missed the crossbar. Jones gets it in the corner, tries to shoot it down the ice as the penalty's ending. It hits Nick Paul's stick or skate and ricochets right to another Florida player, Belinskas. They got a break there. But then Belinskas makes an outlet to Lundell. Mm-hmm. And Lundell is a 2-on-1 with Mikkola, who got the penalty, comes out of the box to make it a 3-on-1. 4 Lightning forwards, because it was the end of a power play. So the one defenseman is back, but the other 4 guys are all at the dot to below the goal line in the Florida end. So that is a huge, huge mistake. Yeah, they got a break when it hit Paul's stick.
Yeah.
But why were those 4 guys that low in the offensive zone? You're opening yourself up for something bad to happen coming the other way, and that's exactly what happened. Lightning had bad luck again with a broken stick on the Verhaeghe goal. I mean, that's 3
Crozier,
times
right?
now.
Crozier
broke his stick. 3 times now in the last week plus. The Lightning have had a goal go in when they're down a stick.
Congrats to Crozier, by the way. Congrats to Crozier. Very cool. And you brought up a good point. Easier said than done, of course. And I think these are with all of these goaltenders. Maybe there's something there with the Russian goaltenders. Get those pucks up.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be one that really hammers that. I know that's a challenge. But both goals the Lightning did score, they were up. So I don't know if there's... I mean, I feel like we can say that for any goaltender, too, though.
Yeah,
you want to get the puck up, right?
The Panthers made it hard for the Lightning to get clean shots to the net.
They did.
They blocked them. They were contesting them. They got their sticks in the way. They played very, very well.
I need a little Al.
Yes, what does Al have to say?
Al, I
today?
love Al. The Panthers do not respect the Lightning. They do not respect the power play. Thus are not worried about a failed challenge. The Lightning are arrogant and continue to play East-West hockey when they should play North-South. So
It's a little bit what I was talking about with
at the
the
end.
Ferrari on the
but it's a good
on
point.
the road.
I wonder too. It doesn't excuse the Panthers for potentially going over the line and doing the hits that they've had. But you do wonder, is there any truth now? And it might not just be the Panthers, but are you able to play a little bit more physical brand of hockey and do things that you typically wouldn't do if you know the other team is struggling in that one area on the power play? I mean, it's funny. On the pregame, we kind of joke. I know a couple of times the guys have said, do you decline the power play? Because sometimes that can feed momentum to the other team. Ironically, I take the optimistic view of this because I do feel you do not want to give Nikita Kucherov unlimited or unnecessary opportunities with the man advantage, because I think eventually talent wins that out and they will figure it out. Now, look, so far I get it. It's been more of a hit or more of a miss than a hit. So I acknowledge that. I just don't think you should keep going to that well, maybe intentionally, because you think the Lightning's power play is not very good. Numbers are numbers. You can't run away from that.
Yeah, and it's not like the Lightning have never scored in the power play.
I just think they
Panthers.
figure that out at some point. And look, all it takes is one goal for Kucherov to get rolling or one play, and that power play could take off. That being said, I am curious, is it part of the Panthers where they feel like they can toe the line, knowing that, that challenge, we all kind of looked at it and we're like, that's probably a bad challenge.
Backfired. It could have backfired on Florida.
And did they do it because was there a lack of respect just for the power play?
See, I don't think that's it. Al, I don't think the Panthers are looking to go on the penalty kill against the Lightning. No team is looking to go on the penalty kill. I think the Panthers are very comfortable being on the penalty kill against the Lightning power play right now because they've had a lot of success. They have confidence. They have swagger. They believe in what they're doing shorthanded. But they don't go sniffing out penalty kills. They would probably prefer to have no penalty kills in a game. I think Maurice challenged because he felt he was going to get it right. But if he got it wrong, I don't think that he was freaking out. I just think you're up 4-2. The way you've been defending, that's an unnecessary risk. And even if he believed it was goalie interference, it wasn't obvious goalie interference. At best, at very, very best, it was a 50-50 for the Panthers. Anything other than that was slanted in favor of the Lightning because Gensel's skates were barely in the blue and the contact did happen in the white. It would have taken a very generous interpretation for that to come off the board. They would have been like, well, Gensel's skates are in the blue. We can't really tell if the contact, because it was right at the top of where the blue meets the white with red in there as well. For that goal to get taken off the board, you would have had somebody in the situation room being like, well, I can see that a sliver of Gensel's skates might be in the blue when the puck goes in. And, there is incidental contact and we can't really tell if it's in the blue or the white, but we're going to give the goalie the benefit of the doubt. That's probably the only way that's coming off the board. So, that's a leap for Maurice. You're probably losing that challenge.
Yeah.
So, I thought it was a risky challenge. I don't think he was like, there's no way the Lightning are going to score in the power play, so we're just going to roll the dice here, right? Usually the only time you see that happen is when the game is out of reach, and you're desperate for a call, and you're like, well, if we lose it, we're probably losing the game anyway. They're still up. Lightning could have made that 4-3.
Right.
I know fans are like, there's no way they would have made it 4. Look, Gensel before that fight had a chance at the side of the net. And as much as the Lightning have struggled against the Panthers when they've been on the power play, it's not like they've never scored. They scored 3 goals in the series last year on the power play. So you're inviting trouble, and the Panthers got through it. So
I like Sabrin. I like Douglas. I think we've talked about this before. They have a skill set. I think Sabrin more than Douglas, although Douglas isn't just a stiff out there. I think he actually has an idea of what he wants to do. But those two guys are players who can drop the gloves and will. I don't know if they're feared yet. Maybe Sabrin more than Douglas, actually.
Yeah.
Does it deter teams from doing what the Panthers do? Because that's always the argument. You have guys out there, and the stories with Maroon and Shen pointing
right.
That ends now. Are we seeing that? Is that going to happen?
Well, there was no funny business. There was no funny business in the first meeting. There was
that is true, and that is that because of Sabrin kind of roaming around and nobody wanted to fight. But I feel like if we're still seeing targets and hits that are borderline dirty to Lightning star players, and you do have guys out there who can take care of business, I just want to be fair. Is on the flip side, does that mean that part's not necessarily working as effectively as some people think? I don't know. I think it's an interesting question. Andrew says, 2 straight games with no goals from our forwards. Time for Coop to put lines in a blender again. Would love to see Peltier get a look. So I think this is another part, a small part of the game last night that we didn't touch on. We can get into this tomorrow a little bit more, partner, is that you didn't have James. You didn't have Gonsalves. And Gonsalves, we know he's had some consistency issues this year. James, I don't think has been the same since he's had the full mask on his face. I think that is fair. I don't know if Nick Paul being on a line with Douglas and Sabrin is going to get the most out of Paul offensively, because we do know Paul can score some goals.
Mm-hmm.
And so do I think this is a problem? No. But it is interesting to see, will the line change a little bit on Thursday, maybe trying to shake some things up and to create a little bit more offense over the last couple of games, which we haven't seen a ton from, to his point, at that forward position, partner.
Yeah, and look, Sabrin was sent down. Now, the Lightning don't play till Thursday, so it's possible he was sent down and may come right back up. I'm not sure if Syracuse plays between now and then. It's possible they have a Wednesday game. We'll see. I mean, John Cooper does mix up the lineup. And I think that he wanted that rugged lunch pail type of line in the game last night because it worked very well for the Lightning in the first meeting.
Yeah.
And it's hard to argue. I mean, they were out there, I think, for the Marchand goal. But, they did some good things in the offensive zone in terms of, winning pucks and controlling play. Paul had a tip. I can't remember if that was on a power play in the second period, but he had a close call on a tip. He had a shot in the third period when it was 4-2. Bobrovsky made the glove save, but he was unscreened. And that was with Sabrin and Douglas out there. So I don't think it was the wrong move by John Cooper to have those 3 guys together on a line, but I don't know if it's going to continue on Thursday and through the rest of the homestand leading into the holiday break.
What do you think about his suggestion, though, about
Peltier?
Well,
you have 2 skilled players that you scratched. I mean,
that's what I mean.
Gonsalves.
I think you go to those 2 guys first, right, before I would go to Peltier. But I think the point is, the last couple of games, you haven't been able to generate as much.
Well,
juice
look,
there.
they generated more in the Islander game than last night, but they definitely generated chances among the forwards against the Islanders on Saturday afternoon. Sorokin made saves. So Gord hit the crossbar. I mean, Gord could have scored there.
In a
That
game
would have been
like
goal for a
that,
forward. I am not worried about, this is 3 games ago, the Lightning scored 8 goals against the Devils. So let's not, as you often say, be a prisoner of the moment. So it's good that they've gotten goals from defensemen. 4 goals from defensemen in the last 2 games. If they hadn't gotten goals from defensemen in 6-7 games, people were like, well, no goals from defensemen. The problem last night wasn't offense. The problem was they fell behind. They didn't defend well enough against a team that's really rolling right now. Now, before we break, and we'll be back tomorrow, we can get into this more. The next 2 opponents for the Lightning, LA on Thursday, Carolina on Saturday. Both those teams play in Sunrise the night before. So we talk about schedule advantages, disadvantages. Lightning have a bit of a scheduling advantage here in the next 2 games. They're catching teams on the second half of a back-to-back where they will not play the night before, and they will have been at home, and we cannot use the fatigue as, the fatigue is done now. I mean, they get 2 days before the next game. They should be ready to go against the Kings. And hopefully this one loss was a blip. They didn't play very well, but honestly, Greg, they haven't had a lot of games like this since the start of the year. So this was a hiccup. Panthers were on it. Lightning weren't. So we'll check in the McDonough status too.
Yeah.
Sounds like he's getting very close. That
right?
would be a
Close.
huge boost
Yeah.
for them to get him back. And you move on. We'll worry about the Panthers again when the teams meet on the 27th.
It makes for good
Post-Christmas Lightning
post-Christmas,
Panthers
right?
from Sunrise, yes.
Can we say a little early fireworks? Is that too?
Or New
heading
Year's,
into the New
yes.
Year,
I
right?
don't
Heading
know.
into the New Year.
We'll see.
Who knows? All right. Well, partner, this was fun. There was a lot to unpack today, which is why we went a little bit over. And still those questions are coming in. Hopefully we can get to those tomorrow. Open show tomorrow, of course. No game. And we'll be back at it and breaking down all of this stuff. Great job.
And we're live
As always.
tomorrow, too.
We are live tomorrow. That'll be a
Yeah.
lot of fun. Thank you, partner.
All right.
Thanks to Steve Versnick. You saw his face early on in the program, and we appreciate all that he does. And everybody who chimed in at Bolts Radio. I am Greg Linnelli. You've been listening to Power Lunch right here on Lightning Radio.